And we're back to Exodus, and we're doing something that is involved in the Bible where bread comes out of the air, out of the sky. I was thinking of some tricky thing to do. If I could have little pieces of pumpernickel bread, on the ceiling, and then pull a string and they fell down and all of this stuff. But I thought, no, anyhow, bread doesn't fall out of the sky. That's what we're talking about today. But there's something much more important than that, and I want you to consider this, because what's becoming apparent to me as I'm looking at this is that the whole concept of the Bible and ancient documents is falling into line on the basis of this Greek mythology or mythological description of the human mind, which is taking the lowest point of consciousness as earth, the second stage as water, the third stage as air, the fourth stage as fire, and the final stage is the new mind. And what I'm seeing, and you might want to help me and look through different stories and see if you can develop the same concept. I'm starting to see this involved in just about everything. The movement from earth to water to air to fire. This is actually baptism. Most people who have been baptized have never been baptized, because baptism is a Greek myth. It's out of Greek mythology. Your New Testament is Greek mythology. And it talks about taking the earth, which is your mind, into a second stage of consciousness through meditation, which is called water, rising out of that stage into a third stage, which is called air, rising out of that stage into the fourth stage, which is fire, and then developing the new mind. So this is really baptism. Baptism then becomes a psychological thing. Interestingly enough, as I'm looking at all of these various stories in the Bible, I'm seeing a lot of this as here. Remember, first of all, we had the people of Israel in bondage in Egypt at the lowest point, which was the earth. Then they crossed the Red Sea, and last week we're at the bitter water of Marah. Now what's happening this week? Bread is coming out of the sky, out of the air, and then in a couple of weeks we'll get to the point of fire on the mountain. So everything, and what's so interesting here is that this whole story has nothing to do with Jews running around in the desert, nothing to do with fires, nothing to do with any of this stuff, nothing to do with water. This is talking about your brain. This is talking about how your brain works. The whole thing is myth. And if, what I'd like you to do, if you haven't ever seen it, is go to the library and check out that series that Joseph Campbell did with Bill Moore called The Power of Myth. And one of the things that Joseph Campbell said is one of the most destructive things that's happened to society is we've lost our myth. We don't have it anymore. And we're taking all of these stories literally, and we miss it. Here's a document that's called Exodus that's talking about the development of your mind. It's talking about what goes on inside of your brain. It's talking about how you touch it, how you make it work, and we read it as real story. And we miss the whole thing because we don't understand the myth. So last week we had these people coming to this place of Marah, which is bitter water. In other words, it is water, it is what we think is truth, but it's bitter, because the fact is that when we followed this particular direction, we found out it wasn't true, and we became very, very bitter. And so that's where we were. But after we overcame that by putting the tree or putting ourselves in the water of life, which is the second stage of consciousness, the water became sweet. And on page 60 in Exodus chapter 15 and verse 27, it says, we came to the place of Elim, and there were 12 wells of water. Well, that number 12 is perfected truth, because it symbolizes that of the zodiac, the 12 signs of the zodiac. There were 70 palm trees. Then that number 7 is the sign of the 7 chakras and divine intervention. So we came to this place of meditation. We came to this place of peace, and we came to this place of relaxation. Please, when you're studying Exodus, don't think of people coming across the desert. That never happened. The people that came across the desert and that wound up in Babylon were Bedouin tribesmen who were driven out of the hills. All of this stuff was created in the spiritual mind of magnificent people whose pineal glands were flashing in tremendous sync, and they were able to put down directions concerning the utilization of the human mind. It is talking about what goes on inside of your head. The ambushes that happened to the people of Israel, they happen inside of your head. All the time you get ambushed. And so here we get to a point in Exodus chapter 15. and verse 27, where you finally come to a place of peace. See? But you see, I have people that they'll write me and they'll call on the phone or whatever from all over the country. I got a letter from San Francisco. Lady said, I meditate. All I want is peace of mind. That's when you arrive at this place of Elim, where there's, the 12 wells of water. But guess what? You'll only have it for a day, or maybe 2 days. Sometimes you'll have peace of mind for a week. But then you'll get ambushed. Bang! Something will happen. It has to happen. It's just like, the ocean is calm and it's beautiful, and, you go down to the beach and you sit there and little kids are playing in the stand, and all of a sudden here comes Felix, and now the ocean is churning up and so forth and so on. That's the nature of life. So when you look at peace of mind, if you have peace today, there's a pretty good chance you may not have it tomorrow. If you have it this week, all hell's liable to break out next week, because that's the way it is. And that's what keeps you alive. Because you know what's going to happen if you have a lot of peace? You're going to get bored, and you're going to create hell somewhere or other. I can't stand this. What's going on? Nothing. And you'll stir something up. You'll make somebody miserable, and they'll get mad at you, and then everybody will have a hell of a fight and say, hey, and then you'll feel good. Then you get recharged. That's the way it is. Such is the nature of things. So what has happened? Last week we came to this beautiful place of water. We came to this beautiful place of Elim. 12 wells of water, 70 palm trees, the 12th perfection, the 7 of the chakras, and we've got peace of mind. But guess what? Here we go again. Look at Exodus chapter 16. And they took their journey from Elim, and all the congregation of the children of Israel came unto the wilderness of sin. The wilderness of sin. See, remember, they could have stayed with the palm trees. They could have stayed with the 12 wells of water. But it's time to move on. It's time to see what's out there. It's time to see, what we can stir up. What's going on? And that's what we do. And that's the nature. That's the types of, that's what life is all about. So we move on to the wilderness of sin. Okay? We come to the point of emotional confusion. Remember, what is sin? Sin has nothing to do with sex, drugs, smoking, gambling, cursing, anything like that. Sin is the name of the moon god of Ur of the Chaldees. You look that up in any book of mythology. If you're down there looking for the Joseph Campbell tapes, you go in and you look up a book of mythology, and you look up the word sin, you find it's the moon god. The moon represents the emotions because it reflects back whatever is shown on it. It's metaphysics. So when you are in the wilderness of sin, you are in the absolute wilderness of confusion of the mind. You don't know where the heck you're at. You don't know. Everything looks the same. You don't know whether to turn to the left. You don't know whether to turn to the right. You don't know what to do. And what do we do when we are in the wilderness? What do we do when we are confused by our emotions? What do we do when our emotions inside of us have us to the point that we're not sure what is going on? Look at Exodus chapter 16, verse 2. And the whole congregation of the children of Israel murmured. Oh, you're I'm not fed up with this crap. I'm getting out of here, man. I ain't gonna put up with this crap. It stinks. It's not the way it used to be. You know what I'm talking about. You should know. You sit around, oh, Miss Queen Bee. And that's exactly what's going on. Once there's this confusion, once there's this emotions inside of us is in charge, we murmur. How many of you have murmured in the last couple of weeks? Raise your hand. Everybody murmurs. Everybody murmurs. And then you know what they'll do? I'm not going down to that meditation. Jesus, I was all right before I started that crap. Everything was good, and then I started this. Oh, man, I like it. Everything's all screwed up. The murmuring and complaining is the desperate straits we find ourselves in. Even though we're going in the right direction. This is the wild part. We're going in the right direction. But remember, even when you're going in the right direction, there are things ready to ambush you. Always there's somebody there's a snake under every rock, ready to take a snipe at you. Now, there's two things we got to look at here, which are interesting. See, look at what we've done here. We've taken this bizarre, stupid story of 40,000 Jews wandering around a desert looking for a street for 40 years. You know, 40 years! Isn't it time to give? 40 years they're looking for this street. I mean, all you got to do is say, where does the sun rise? The sun rises in the east. Follow that way. Or go in the other, you know, but no, they're wandering. So, I mean, and what have we done to it? We've turned it into a story of psychological truth about the workings of the brain, the workings of the human mind. So, and last week, remember, we got to the water. And this week, you get to the air. You move from the water to that third stage, which is the air. Now, there are two things we have to look at in the next verse and put it in a proper context. Look at Exodus chapter 16 where you are in verse 4. And the Lord says, I will rain bread from heaven. All right? Bread is truth. Remember, Jesus is the bread of life. Metaphysically, bread is truth. That's what the word means. It's just like shoot a bull means have a conversation. Shot his mouth off means spoke out of turn. Bread means truth. Now, where is the bread going to come from? Heaven. All right? Now, in order to understand this psychologically, in order to understand this, you have to pinpoint the location of this place. What is heaven? Heaven is God's kingdom. I don't think anybody would have any qualms with saying that. So if heaven is God's kingdom, then we've got to locate it. And we can do it. And you can use this book of mythology. And don't you think for a minute that this isn't. And don't you think for a minute the New Testament is not Greek mythology. It is loaded with it. It is loaded with Plato. It is loaded with Pythagoras. It is loaded with Greek mythology. It is loaded even with the fact that the word Jesus is a Greek name of Greek mythology, meaning the mythical sun in the sky. But God's kingdom is portrayed very clearly. It says here that I will rain down bread from heaven. Keep your finger in the place where you are there and go to page 853. Okay, we want to find out the location of this heaven. We want to find out the location of God's kingdom. And it says in Luke chapter 17, look at verse 21. Look for yourself. It says in Luke chapter 17, verse 21, neither shall they say it's here or there, for behold, the kingdom of God is within you. I will rain down bread from heaven. I will bring truth down from the highest point of consciousness within you. Not, folks, most 99% of the people that go to church sit in the church and honestly believe that Entenmann's cupcakes and all the Dugan's bread fell out of the sky as they're walking around. Hey, I'll take a little pumpernickel over here. Hey, not me. I don't drink that. I'm allergic to the gluten. I'll have some wheat over here. There's why. They actually believe bread fell out of the sky. Bread cannot fall out of the sky. People 100 years old don't have babies. Snakes don't talk. Fish, you can't live in their intestines. They puke and all of this stuff. These are myths. Why should we even have to sit and look what we've missed? Look what we've missed. But we've sat just like you are sitting, arms folded. Hey, bread fell out of heaven. God is good. God is good. Oh, God is good. Bread falling out, you know. It's even wrapped. It's even stamped. Don't use it after Thursday. It's got everything on it. Huh?
Manna. M-A-N-N-A.
That's another question. We'll get into that. That's all right. That's a whole other question. No, don't be sorry. No, that's good. That's fine. I'm glad you raised that. Okay. Okay. So the kingdom is, so bread or understanding comes down from your higher mind. Now the second point is, and this I want to show you, and this is very important. If you look in Exodus chapter 16, where you are, verse 4, I'll rain down bread from heaven, and the people shall go out and gather a certain rate every day, that I may prove them. Okay? That certain rate is your persistent, gradual change that occurs in you through meditation. You know, it is telling you, hey, it is not all going to happen to you tomorrow. You're not going to all of a sudden evolve into this thing the day after tomorrow. This is going to be a slow thing, a persistent rate every day. And now you come to that point of the 7 chakras. You remember? Revelation chapter 5:1, and I saw in the book, in the hand of him who sat on the throne, a book in his right hand, on the backside sealed with 7 seals. Now this is important, because what you're going to get into right now is back to where this David Koresh was looking at the time that all of that nonsense happened out there in Waco when he misinterpreted this. The 7 chakras are talking about, and the certain rate is you'll move through the first, you'll move through the second, you'll move through the third, the fourth, fifth, sixth, and you'll then enter into various parts. You open these seals and you'll correct various parts of the body and various parts of the mind and so forth and so on. But this is the interesting part. In Exodus 16:5 it says, "And it shall come to pass that on the 6th day they shall prepare that which they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily." Okay, it shall be twice as much. So we move through the first, we move through the second and the third and the fourth and the fifth and the sixth. And then on the 6th we receive twice as much. Because the 7th then is nirvana. The 7th is that point of meditation, and twice 6 is 12, which is that point of perfection. And that point of perfection is when we take into ourselves from the higher mind that bread. The energy has raised itself up to the 6th chakra. And that next point is that point of the 7th of the crown chakra. That 7th is the point of the pineal gland of the brain. And that talks about then opening that pineal, opening that right hemisphere, and bringing you to that point of perfection, which is 12, the sign of the zodiac. So it's a wonderful truth. And look what it's saying here. The bread of the wisdom comes from within you when you are in the wilderness because of your emotions. Look up, and this will come, and it will come to you as it starts to rise up the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. And on the 6th, you will open the 6th seal. Do you remember that's what Koresh was working on? He was going to open the 6th seal. He didn't have the slightest idea what he was reading. He hadn't the slightest idea what was going on. And so he was looking for this thing of violence and this thing. And what happened? He was looking for fire. Don't you see? And this will happen here. See, they took it. They went to the water of Elam. They went to the water of the Red Sea. And now they find the air. Coming down out of the air is the bread. They've risen to the 3rd. And then they'll get to the mountain of fire. But he was looking at a literal fire. Because that's what he's taught by Christianity, that the world is going to be destroyed by fire. Look, remember I was telling you a little while ago about this? Everything in here is a progression from earth to water to fire. Remember, what does it say in the Bible? That Noah took the ark and the world was destroyed by water. But it says it won't be water, but fire next time. Because the movement is then in the same way, from the earth to the 2nd stage to the water, up to the air to the mountaintop, and then to the fire, to that 3rd stage. Okay, it's even in Moses. Moses, you take this idea of Moses, who didn't even exist. You take this idea of a person. You take this idea of a mind. And what happens to Moses? The word Moses means drawn out of the water. He was taken out of a little bark of water. Remember his mother put him in the water and he was 3 months? He's taken out of the water. He rises in consciousness up to the mountain. And what happens when he gets up to the mountain? He sees the burning bush. Everything is earth, water, air, fire. See, because it's talking about inside of you. Everything inside of you is this gradual movement upward from a point of total ignorance to a point of beginning to understand, to a point of separation from thought, to a point of being touched by that which is the fire, or that which is the spirit, or that which is the energy within you. Now, here's a wonderful and interesting truth on page 61 in Exodus chapter 16 and verse 8. And Moses said, "This shall be when the Lord shall give you in the morning, in the evening, flesh to eat, and in the morning bread to the full." Okay. Now let's just hold on that point for a minute. As in verse 10, and as it came to pass, the whole congregation of Israel, they looked toward the wilderness, and behold, the glory of the Lord appeared in a cloud. And in verse 13, it came to pass that in the evening the quails came up and covered the camp, and in the morning the dew lay around the host. Look what we're talking about. Just try to stop for a minute. In the evening, you will eat flesh. In the morning, you will eat bread. Okay? And just try to think of what's being said here for just a moment, okay? In the darkness, in the evening, that which is truth comes to you. You actually devour yourself. You actually devour this which is the flesh. You actually consume this which is the flesh by consuming your very own being. In that point of the darkness of meditation, inside of yourself, you actually consume this truth inside of the flesh. The flesh is devoured. The flesh is gone. You separate from that which is the body. The flesh is that which you eat in the evening. And then the light comes. And then the morning comes. And then you find the bread. You find the truth you understand. It has nothing to do with birds flying around at night. We're going to feed on the bird. You're going to feed on the flesh in the evening, which means in the darkness of your meditation, you feed on the flesh. You separate from that which is the flesh, that which is the lower. It is devoured. And then, when that is devoured, the light comes. It has nothing to do with the real morning. It's talking about the light comes up, the sun comes up, the enlightenment comes up, the understanding comes up. And there is bread, there is manna, there is truth, there is understanding. We are murmuring. We are filled with desire for what? And meditation is in the evening, and the flesh is fed. And then the body cools down, the relaxation comes. And remember this quail. Birds that fly, and birds are flying at the night. And you'll eat those birds, and those birds that fly in the night symbolize those thoughts which come from the divine place, deep within you, from the sky, from the air, from the third stage of consciousness. They send birds. From the third stage of consciousness, in the darkness of your meditation, they send that which you devour, which flies down from out of the air, which flies down from out of the higher mind, which then brings to you understanding and enlightenment of what your life is about. You see? See? Otherwise, what have you got? Some guy sitting at nighttime with birds, grabbing and eating birds. But here you're talking about something totally different. You're talking about your mind. You're talking about your brain. You're talking about yourself. And you're saying what is being told to you here is that if you'll only take the time. Geez, I don't know what else to do. I really don't. I can understand you don't believe me. I can understand it. Who the heck? I'm standing in Forked River. Where the heck is that? In the basement of this guy's thing with a lady up here doing hair and nails and all this. What are you going to believe? Well, how could I be? It's ridiculous. But I'm telling you, I've told you for 7 years, and now it's a Newsweek magazine. It's all over the place. It's all over the television. And what is it telling you? If you will take yourself into the wilderness of your meditation, this bird will come, this quail will come, this food will come from a higher mind, and the melatonin will flow within you. And that this bread of this understanding of truth will come for your life, and you'll start to heal. Each one of you, people come in here and say, oh, I didn't get anything out of meditation. You could come in here with a microscopic cancer which could develop into something that could ravage through your body, and by sitting in a meditation the melatonin could erase it and wash it away, and you'd have it all. And you'd walk out the door and say, I didn't get anything out of it. You haven't any idea. And it doesn't make any difference if the music is too loud or too slow. It doesn't make any difference if you had thoughts or you didn't have thoughts. When you shut down your mind and you shut down your eyes and you sit in that darkness, that pineal gland opens and the melatonin flows whether you think you got anything out of it or not. You don't even know. You go to bed, you eat. What happens? Your body starts digesting your food. Does it say, excuse me? Would you wake up? Do you mind if we digest? It doesn't ask you for any of that stuff. Your hair grows, not as fast as it used to, but your hair grows. It doesn't ask permission for any of this stuff to happen. It just happens. It's what, yes. You just have to stand up so they can see it.
I just want to tell everybody about that lady who knows nothing about meditation.
Well, then tell them. It's good.
Somebody that's coming to me and she really has no knowledge of anything that's taught here in the church. She had never meditated before. And so I told her to meditate. I gave her a Cotti tape, and she started, and she could feel this energy in the middle of her forehead. And she got a little bit nervous, saying, what's happening to me? I'm not doing it right. I'm doing something wrong. So when I saw her last week, she told me, and I said, that's your single eye, the seat of the soul. She didn't even realize it, but she had opened that pineal gland.
That's right. And if somebody had instructed her how to do it, she'd have never got it. She'd have never found it. You have to go in just like a child. And that's what is being said here. You mean it doesn't take, how much time does it take? Does it take for you to sit down for a half hour? Does it take for you to understand? What in this world is so important that you can't finally understand? You know what to do with your, look, let me show you something. Take your hand. Do you know how to close your finger? Do you know how to move? Do you know how to move your leg? Do you know how to move your leg? Blink your eye. How do you blink? You know how to do all this? Do you know what? Do you know what with your mind, what's in there? You don't know fakakta. You don't know anything. The most important thing right in the middle of your brain, you don't know what to do with it. Absolutely don't know what to do with it. It's like your steering wheel in your car. It's like if you get in your car and there's no steering wheel. And you know most of those religions up there, up and down the street, they'll tell you, don't go near that. Don't go near that. It's like you're sitting in a car and saying, well, I don't have a steering wheel because my pastor doesn't allow it. My pastor doesn't believe in steering wheels. How do you drive? We just do. And we crash into everything. But you don't understand. And so it comes out in Newsweek, and it comes out in all of these things, and it's in all of these, and doctors know about it, and hospitals know about it. And you sit there and you don't have the slightest idea that the most critical thing, which was talked about by Jesus, was talked about by Buddha, was talked about Christian, all this book talks about is what goes on inside of your brain, and people haven't the slightest idea. They don't even know they have anything. And I'll tell you something, you didn't even know you had a pineal gland. You didn't know it. You hadn't the slightest idea you had a pineal gland in your brain. Didn't know it. Most important thing in your body. And you know what René Descartes, the father of modern philosophy from France, said? The place in a human being where God meets the person is at the pineal gland of the brain. And now all of these guys say, we find out what this is for. No, you didn't find out what this is for. This was given thousands of years ago. Jacob knew what it was for. But you're sitting in this room looking at me. You don't have to come here. It's stronger when you're in with a group in meditation, but you can do it wherever. But for God's sakes, it is the most important part of your body. And you know what? It is like you've gone through your whole life. You know what would happen if you've gone through your whole life with your arm in a sling? What good would it be to you? You know what you've done? You've gone through your whole life with your pineal gland in a sling. And it's atrophied. And it's like a little old fakakta. It's a little old shriveled up piece of nothing. But you know what you can do now? You can exercise. And you know what? It's tough to exercise. I got on Joan's bicycle the other day. What is this? I got to lose weight. I'll die. It's hard. So you're taking this little thing, which is the most important part of you, which will put you into contact with the universe, and it's shriveled up, and you start exercising. I didn't get anything. I didn't get anything. Well, how old are you? 15, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. You've had it in a sling. Take it out of a sling. Exercise. 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 And it starts to strengthen and strengthen and strengthen. And pretty soon it'll start to harden. See, it's sandy. The pineal gland in your brain, most of you, it's sandy. It's unregenerated. It's not disciplined. It's sandy. And Jesus says if those who build their house on sand, when the storm comes, it washes out. You know what happens when a storm comes into your life? Chaos. Chaos. But he says, if you build your house on rock, when you exercise this thing in meditation, it becomes like a rock, and the house will not fall. Okay? Now, we're going into this one thing. Before you go on, it's necessary to consider the human brain. And your brain, I don't care if you're a man, woman, boy, girl, whatever you are, it's no different than anybody else's. This is you. Not bad. Little bow tie, huh? Okay? That's your part. 10% of your brain. That is what you think with. The rest of it is off limits. You know what this is in the boy? This is the Garden of Eden. You know? How do I know that? Because they built the garden eastward in Eden. Whenever you look north, east is always on the right. That's God's part. You're not allowed in there. Huh? Now, let me tell you something. You have 10%. You can take only into yourselves on that left side, that 10%. You don't take anything here. You take this side. This is where you do all your conniving, all your finagling, all of your ranting and raving, all of your murmuring, all of that goes on right here. And it happens in that 10%. See? Now, when you shut this down, you turn on this side. That's why Jesus said, cast your net to the right side. Because when you shut down that left side, you turn on the right. After you meditate, you act on what was given to you in meditation. But it's not over here. Now it's over here. But still only 10%, Albert. It's still only the 10%. It's good stuff. It came from here, but it's still only the 10%. Say. So you take into you that which is the 10%. See, that's what it says. Bring all the tithes into the storehouse, that there may be meat in my kingdom. In other words, you give that 10%, you turn this on. Information then comes to you from this side, and you begin to understand. Now, understanding that, let's go back to this lesson. The manna is on the ground. The bread fell out of heaven. The manna is on the ground. The truth is in your mind. Now, a wonderful clue. Look at Exodus chapter 16. You see it? Look at verse 16. This is the thing with Lord command. Gather every man according to his eating, an omer for every man. An omer is 1/10. 1/10. 10%. That's what you get. That's what you get. In other words, when that bread falls, you will take it, and it will take it into that which is your part, that 10th. That's yours. Now, you know what? Golly, Jesus, I know, for God's sakes. You know, do you know how stupid? All of a sudden you're smart. And you look at you're smart, you know all of this stuff. And you go to people and say, guess what? Let me tell you the truth about all of this stuff. And they say, oh, you're a cult. You've been hanging down in the basement of that screwy guy with the blue shirt on. Don't stay away from that guy. See, because all of theirs is where? They didn't have any bread. They never ate the quail. They never ate the flesh at night, so they couldn't get into the bread in the morning. They don't know. And so they sit here with everything that they've ever had, but they never got what came from here. Here, gather 10. Take 10%. So see what it says right there? In Exodus chapter 16:16, it says right there, hey, gather every man an omer. Take every man for that which is in his 10. So this is you and me, and we take in that 10% from God. Now understand, I want to tell you something. This is very interesting. Verse 18, and they gathered, and he that gathered much had nothing left over, and he that gathered little had no lack. In other words, everything that you get in meditation is geared just for you. He might need 5,000, he'll get 5,000. She might need 15, she'll get 15. Just exactly. She might not be able to handle 5,000. He might go nuts if he only gets 15. It'll get exactly. And he won't need any more, and she won't have a lack of everything. It'll be just right. See? That's why when people try to tell you this is the way it is, it may not be for you. It may be for them, but it may not be for you. I don't tell anybody because I don't want to screw you up, because I want you to gather, and you gather from within yourself spiritually, and what you gather is right smack on the money what you need. See? And you may go out, and I'll tell you, listen, this is how you do it, so you can gather 20, but you may need to gather 2,000. And if you don't pay any attention to me, when you go into this beautiful desert of meditation, you'll gather 2,000. But I'll tell you something, if you do it my way, you'll only gather 20, and you'll have missed 1,980. Don't believe this stuff. Understand this stuff. But for God's sakes, for you, and for you want to avoid cancer, you want to avoid heart disease, for your children. Will you read the papers? Will you read Newsweek? Will you listen to the doctors? Will you listen to the scientists? Will you listen to Jesus? Will you listen to Buddha? Will you listen to Krishna? And will you go in and will you let the pineal open? Will you exercise it? And will you let the melatonin flow? It's up to you. See? And so there's an interesting statement now. Here, now listen to this real quick. 16:19. Look what it says, 16:19. Let no man leave it till the morning. Some left it and it bred. In verse 20, some of them left it and it bred worms. And what this is telling you is you must continually take this within yourself. The lack of continuing meditation can cause that which was given to you to dry up and go away. You can't let it sit. You can't say, well, it's got to be a part of your life now. You go to the bathroom, you got to meditate. You drink, you got to meditate. You eat, you got to do it just like you do that. You walk. Here's people get up, see, and they get on the treadmill, and they go, hey, and they're all, but then they sit down, and then they say, look at the shape I mean. Watch it. When I was in the Navy, we used to have a new, guy told me, I was posing for a picture. Don't pose like that. Don't pose like that. So I had to pose for the picture. So we sit, pose for a picture. Put your arm like this, then bring your fist under your arm and go like that. I did. Look at me. Because I was skinny, we weighed 124 pounds. But boy, did I have muscles. Yeah. Because it was, everybody wants to be in shape. But understand your pineal is a wreck. And you got to get it. You got to open it up. You got to get it going. Now, really quick, because I know you're late. Okay. In verse 21, look what it says. And they gathered it every morning, every man according to his eating. When the sun waxed hot, it melted. The sun is simply an allegorical suggestion that the physical solar fire, the passion from the solar plexus, the passion of the flesh is capable of destroying the gift that came from the higher mind. You've got to keep it flowing in the meditation, or that which is the energy that burns within you in the lower part will burn it up. It's got to be constant. See? And look at verse 23. And he said, this is the day which the Lord said, tomorrow is the holy day. Tomorrow is the Sabbath. You see, remember that guy's picture up there? Tomorrow is the Sabbath. That's the seventh, the day of rest. That's the point of meditation. The seventh, the Sabbath, is the point of meditation. It says you can take nothing into the holy city on the Sabbath. When you reach the seventh, you can take nothing into the right side. You can take none of your thoughts, none of your ideas, none of your techniques. But it says here, tomorrow is the holy. And what it means, at this point, the gift will not be destroyed. Look what it says. Please, just stop for a second. Tomorrow is the rest. Bake that which you will take today. See that you will see that you will remain overlaid up for you to keep until the next morning. And they did. And it did not stink, neither was there any worms. Meaning at this point, when you reach the seventh, that gift will not deteriorate. That gift will not spoil. That gift will not be burnt up by the emotions, because it is now dwelling in the higher place. It is dwelling in the holy place. It is dwelling in the high place of consciousness. And I'll show you something interesting. And sometimes when you think it's time for you and you're going to meditate and you're going to follow this technique and that technique, let me show you something. And this should put it into perspective. Exodus 16:25. And Moses says, eat that today, for today is a Sabbath, and you shall not find it in the field. In other words, what you got yesterday, what you were given, you better consume that into you, because today you shall not find it in the field. The thoughts are gone. The mind is virgin. It is the day of the sun. It is the pineal. It is Sunday. 6 days, it says in verse 26, and you shall gather it. That's the mental activity. Look again, because I don't want to go too fast. 6 days, see verse 26? 6 days you shall gather it, but on the seventh, which is the Sabbath, in it there shall be none. That's the beautiful part. You work your way through your meditation, and you go home, or you listen to the music, or you focus, or you do whatever you do, and you run, and you bring this energy, and the energy starts to move up the first energy, the second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, and the sixth. But when you get to that place of the seventh, it's gone. There's nothing there. You can't see anything. You can't feel anything. You can't do anything. It's sealed with 7 seals. And in Exodus verse 16, verse 27, it says, it came to pass that there went out some of the people on the seventh day to gather, and they found none. Some went out on the seventh to gather, but they found you can't. It's not up to you anymore, folks. It doesn't make any difference how hard you try. It's not up to you. It's simply going to happen, or it's not going to happen. It opens up within you. It's a beautiful point that opens up within you, and it's strictly that which of God. But it says in verse 30, finally, the people rested on the seventh day. When you come into meditation, sometimes I just feel like going up and talking up in the sky, because I don't know. And I know, you've got to do what you want to do. You've got to but look at this great deal I'm giving you. Go in the bathroom and do it. Run the water. They're never going to know what you're doing in there. It doesn't mean you have to join anything. It doesn't mean you have to spend anything. But it does mean you've got to start to take not only this ancient wisdom, but you've got to start to understand that, which is the new science and the understanding of this thing that's going on within you. See? So it says in verse 33, this is the commandment. Fill an omer. In other words, take that which is the tenth. See? Take that which is the truth. Not only for yourself, but take it so that you may see the bread that I have found in the wilderness to keep for generations. For your kids! Your kids that you have at home have a pineal gland that's active, but you know what? Every day that they don't meditate, it grows a little weaker, and a little weaker, and a little weaker, and then before you know it, it becomes just like yours and mine. Nothing. because we don't know. But you do know now. You should know. And just in case, so that you may know that what I told you is true, look at verse 36. An omer is the 10th part of an ephah, which is measurement. It says in verse 36, an omer is the 10th part. So here you came out of the water of bitterness, and in that bitterness you raised yourself up into the air, up into the sky, up into the higher mind. And there that bird came, that quails came, and you devoured the flesh within yourself. And then the sun came out, and you began to understand truth. You began to understand reason. You began to feel within yourself, finally you know why you're alive. You know what the purpose of you. Maybe finally you'll understand the person sitting next to you. Maybe finally they'll understand you. Maybe finally you'll be able to look at somebody and say, you understand, and they understand. Maybe finally we'll be able to understand each other in this world. Maybe finally the universe will understand. Maybe finally we'll understand nature and the animals, and we'll understand the stars, and we'll understand the mountains and the water. All of this, look, you're trying to understand, they're trying to solve the problems of the world, and you don't even understand what you've got in the center of your own head. We're trying to figure out how to save everything, and we don't even know what's inside of us closer than our breath in the center of our head. We have neglected it, and we've listened to all of the educators who didn't know, and all of the priests who didn't know, and all of the ministers and evangelists who didn't know, and all of the religious people who didn't know, and finally you get to this point where you know, and now you're going to sit. Or you're going to take yourself all by yourself, none of my business, none of anybody else's business, but you're going to start paying attention to yourself, and you're going to start touching that holy place. And that's when the quail and the manna will come, and that's when the enlightenment will come. And then you'll do what these people do. You'll pick yourself up, and you'll continue your trek across the desert of the right hemisphere towards that promised land, and you'll come to the mountain, and you'll come to that mountain of fire, and you'll come to that spiritual explosion on the mountain, and the mountain within you will shake and quake, and then what they call the 10 Commandments, which you will understand like nobody has understood them before in this room, those 10 Commandments will come down to you carved in the very stone of your mind for you, and you'll know exactly what you're to do and how you're to do it. Okay, thank you.